Wow, you have the best job. You just get paid to read all day? I wish my job was like that. Welcome to my channel, guys. It's Ken's Musings, where I talk about anything and everything that goes on in this head of mine. Please like and subscribe. This is kind of my first video, probably the first video that you've ever seen of me. There's others, but I've unlisted them because I don't really like how they turned out. But anyway, on to this video. So today we're going to be talking about myths about librarians. So I'm a librarian. I've been a librarian technically for about a year, but I've been working in the field for almost 10 years, since 2010 basically. So myth number one: no, we do not sit and read behind the desk all day. I wish that were true. There's so many different types of librarians and so much more to librarianship than what people might think. I know the library is a place where there are books, so the obvious thought, I guess, is, well, books are for reading, so that's probably what librarians do. They read and shush people all day. No. So there are different types of librarians, and each type of librarian may dabble in another thing. It all depends on the staff and what's necessary to run that particular library. So my title, as a librarian, I'm a public services librarian, and right now my job consists of supervising student assistants who also help me do the daily ins and outs of the library, helping people do reference work. So that's basically helping students find their materials that they need for a research assignment or to do their paper, their studies, or whatever it might be. I also help with managing course reserves, which is a feature in the library that helps students get material that stays within the library. We reserve it in the library because a professor may request it for their class, so we reserve it and it stays there so students will always have access to it. It won't ever leave the library. There are other types of librarians. There are subject-specific librarians who may be well rehearsed in like psychology, law, sociology, theology, whatever it might be. And those are librarians who can help assist students or patrons in those specific subjects. We also have law librarians who work with the courthouse in assisting lawyers and different people there with figuring things out, because not everyone has all the knowledge in their head. They need a little bit of assistance of finding the material so that they're prepared for whatever court situation they're in. There are also children's librarian who may work in a public library, and they specifically are trained in assisting children and like running book readings for the summer, doing programs for children. There are adolescent librarians. There are adult librarians. They, pretty much the same thing, but for those age groups. We have medical librarians who are specifically trained in those areas. We also have archivists who they're trained on preserving books, looking at rare books, scanning them, digitizing them so that they are preserved for the long term, managing the physical materials so that they are contained and safe, protected, doing all of that. Some librarians get jobs that aren't even in the library field. They work in museums. I've heard stories of librarians who got their library degree and they ended up working for a national park. And what they did was they walked around and would collect like samples of different things in that forest area. They would classify the creatures that live there, different bugs, insects, animals, things like that. So it's very interesting, the different things that are capable of being brought out from these skills. And for that matter, I realized that I'm still referring to libraries as just a book thing. when libraries are not just about books. There are, there are books, there are digital books, and also libraries consist of databases, journals, articles, videos, DVDs. Archivists not only deal with preserving books, but they also deal with preserving newspapers, pictures, paintings, art, all these different types of things. I've was in school with someone who was interested in dance, and she was a dancer herself, and she was becoming a librarian to deal with audio visual stuff, to deal with dance. And it's so diverse. There's just so much, and I realize I'm rambling. So on to the next myth. So myth number 2. A common misconception is that we don't need a master's degree to be a librarian. Wow, you need a master's degree to be a librarian? Yeah, in most cases, you need to acquire your library degree to become a librarian. And a lot of librarians actually have multiple masters because there are subject-specific librarians, and they require to have a master's degree or a doctorate's degree in those subject-specific areas. So like a psychology librarian specialist will have most likely a degree in psychology, as well as their master's in library and information science. So people think that like being people think that there's not much to being a librarian, but honestly there's a lot of things to do with it. There's a lot of technical things that you have to understand. You have to understand a lot of the theory behind it, because we're dealing with humanities, we're dealing with subject-specific material, we're dealing with collection development, we're dealing with history and historical documents, and there's a lot behind it. And I can't get into all the details because it all depends on what type of librarian you're actually going to be. It's always evolving, it's always changing. As technology changes, the library profession changes because we have to adapt. Like before there weren't digital books, and now there are digital books. So now librarians have to adapt to learning how to manage digital material, dealing with copyright laws to deal with digital material, dealing with how to maintain it, how to store it, how to continually update systems that are able to still use these materials, because sometimes things become outdated as technology develops. So we have to learn how to make a file in a way that we can constantly change it with the times. And that's an ongoing struggle right now in the field, where people are still trying to figure out ways to sustain digital materials in a manner that's going to keep it for the longevity. So all this to say that the library field it's up there with a lot of other professions, and that is why we are required to have a master's degree. Some librarians have just worked so long in the field that they get the title because they've learned it on their job, but eventually they probably will get their master's as well, because if they want to get hired in other places, they want to see that you have that degree. Shh. Libraries are a quiet place. And that brings me to myth number 3. Well, yes and no. Academic libraries, they do tend to be more of a quiet study place because, students are there to study, to read, etc. But there has been a move within the public library sphere where libraries are moving from a book space to more of like a people space. So not only do we gain information through reading materials, but also we gain information through people, through engaging with others, through conversations and discussions. So we find that a lot of libraries are doing these types of things, even what we call maker spaces, where people can gather together and someone will teach how to program a robot or work with Raspberry Pi, things like that. And in those places, they're not expected to be a silent or quiet place. They're expected to be engaging. There's communicating. There's talking. So yeah, no, libraries are not always a silent place. But if there is a silent policy, please abide by it. So there you have it, 3 common myths about librarians or just the library in general. Wow, this took me about 5 hours. Now I know what YouTubers are going through with their bigger projects than 3 myths. But I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video too. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave in the comments whether or not you want me to keep talking about more librarian related topics, or if there's anything else you want to hear. Alright, until next time, see you.